Emma gripped the wheel as her truck jolted along the rain-slicked backroad, headlights slicing through the forest's suffocating dark. The storm had swallowed the world, each thunderclap shaking the glass. She whispered, "Just a few more miles." Then it happened. A figure darted across the beams, too tall, too twisted. Her breath caught as the truck skidded, tires screeching on wet gravel. Something slammed the hood with a hollow thud before vanishing into the trees. Emma screamed, fumbling to steady the wheel, her pulse racing like gunfire. Lightning cracked, illuminating the silhouette of an old unmarked cabin between the trees. Its roof sagged, windows empty like eyes. Emma gasped. "No. Not here." Her headlights flickered once, twice, before plunging her into near darkness. The forest fell silent, unnaturally still, as if waiting. A shadow moved in the corner of her vision, impossibly fast. Her heart stuttered. A clawing sound scraped against the truck's side, metallic and sharp, then stopped just as suddenly, leaving only her ragged breathing and the relentless rain. Emma staggered into the roadside diner, soaked to the bone, trembling so hard her teeth chattered. She gasped. "It hit my truck." Sheriff Daniels looked up from his coffee, unimpressed. "Deer jump out every season." Emma slammed her keys on the counter, voice cracking. "That wasn't a deer." Other patrons shifted uncomfortably, muttering low. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow that clashed with the storm still raging outside. Emma's hands shook as she clutched a napkin, eyes darting to the window as if expecting claws to scrape the glass. Daniels leaned back, sighing. "Stay off those back roads, Emma. Nothing good out there." Her chest tightened, rage bubbling under her fear. She whispered, "You don't understand. I saw the cabin. I saw it." Silence settled over the diner like a weight, every eye avoiding hers. Outside, lightning cracked, and for a second, shadows flickered across the glass like something waiting. The next morning, Emma returned to the diner, her truck dented, hood scratched with marks no animal could make. Locals gathered outside, whispering in tight clusters, eyes avoiding her. An older woman muttered, "The cabin again," before quickly falling silent. Emma approached, demanding, "You know something, don't you?" Their faces hardened, lips sealed shut. Farmer Hughes shifted uncomfortably, his hat pulled low. "Best leave it alone," he said, his voice barely audible. Emma's frustration burned hotter than her fear. "My brother disappeared near there, and you all pretend it's nothing." The crowd scattered like spooked birds, avoiding her gaze. Alone, Emma touched the gashes on her hood, the steel bent like soft clay. A shiver crawled down her spine. The silence of the townsfolk wasn't ignorance, it was terror. Mark found Emma at the gas station later, leaning against her scarred truck. His tone tried for calm but cracked. "Emma, you need to let this go." She snapped back. "It wasn't an animal. You think I'd risk my life swerving for a deer?" Mark rubbed his temples, avoiding her eyes. "People disappear out there. You start chasing this, you'll vanish too." She stepped closer, voice sharp. "My brother vanished. I'm not letting this die like everyone else." His silence was heavier than the storm clouds above. "Finally," he muttered, "then don't drag me into it." The sting cut deeper than claws. Emma watched him walk away, fear clawing her insides, not just of the creature but of being alone in this fight. That night, Emma sat by her window, the storm finally breaking into uneasy stillness. The forest beyond her house loomed like a wall of shadows. She reached to close the curtains when it came, a scrape, metallic and sharp, dragging across the glass. Her breath hitched, chest tight as her fingers froze on the fabric. "No," she whispered. The noise stopped, then started again. Slower this time, deliberate. Emma's pulse thundered in her ears as she forced herself to look. Nothing stood there. Only trees swaying gently. Then, faint against the condensation, a claw traced down the glass, leaving a streak in its path. Emma stumbled back, heart hammering. Her scream caught in her throat as silence returned, suffocating and absolute. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, clutching an old photo of her brother Daniel. The picture was worn, edges curled, his smile frozen in time. Her throat tightened as memories surged. He vanished near the cabin, and nobody believed her then. She whispered, "I should have been there." Guilt burned like acid in her chest. Rain tapped the glass, softer now, almost soothing, but it carried the weight of silence she hated. She opened her father's trunk, the wood creaking with age. Inside were maps, hunting gear, and scraps of notes about strange tracks near the woods. Her hand trembled as she traced faded ink, words half erased. "It follows bloodlines." Fear mixed with sorrow, her body shaking. She clutched the journal, pressing it against her chest, whispering Daniel's name like a prayer. The house groaned, settling in the storm's lull, but Emma's heart refused to rest. She felt the walls listening. Emma met Mark in the diner booth the next morning, the air heavy with stale coffee and whispers from locals who avoided eye contact. She shoved the journal across the table, voice sharp. "My father knew about this." Mark skimmed the notes, brow furrowing. "Emma, these are just scribbles, old fears." She slammed her palm against the table, rattling mugs. "No, it's proof." Her voice cracked, raw. Mark leaned back, hands raised. "You're chasing ghosts, and it's going to break you." Emma clenched her jaw, fighting tears. It already did when Daniel never came home. The silence after her words stung worse than anger. Mark exhaled, softer now. "Emma, I'm scared for you." She gripped the journal tighter, eyes hollow but burning. Outside, rain blurred the street into streaks of gray, the town wrapped in denial. At home that evening, Emma found Lily in the living room, curled on the couch, clutching a blanket. The child's voice wavered. "Aunt Emma, I dreamed about the cabin again." Emma's stomach dropped, forcing calm into her tone. "Tell me." Lily's wide eyes shimmered. Something stood in the doorway, tall, with eyes like fireflies. It called my name. Emma hugged her close, heart thundering, whispering, "It can't hurt you here." But inside, dread knotted tighter. Lily's small hands clutched her shirt. "It knows us," she whispered. Emma's chest tightened as she stroked her niece's hair. She wanted to lie, to soothe, but every word Lily spoke echoed her father's warnings. Outside, the wind hissed against the house, like breath slipping through unseen teeth. Emma confronted Sheriff Daniels outside the station the next day, journal clutched in her hand. Her voice rose. "You knew about the cabin, about people vanishing." Daniels adjusted his hat, jaw tight. "I know drunks crash in the woods, and coyotes leave marks." Emma shook her head, anger sharpening her words. "My father wrote about it, and now Lily sees it." Daniels leaned in, lowering his voice. "You keep digging, you'll tear this town apart." Emma's breath came heavy, fury barely contained. "The town is already broken. You're just too scared to admit it." Daniel's gaze hardened, his silence colder than denial. He walked away, leaving Emma standing alone with rain dripping off the brim of her jacket. She whispered, "You'll bury it until it buries us all." That night, Emma sat at the kitchen table, the journal open under a dim bulb's glow. The pages smelled of mildew and dust, but the words cut fresh wounds. Sketches of claw marks filled the margins, alongside dates of strange sightings. Her father's handwriting trembled across the page. "It wants us. It always has." Her hand shook as she flipped through, finding a pressed leaf stained dark like dried blood. Her throat closed, a chill crawling up her spine. She whispered, "He knew." The house creaked, shadows long across the walls. Emma slammed the book shut, fighting the urge to burn it. But instead she slid it closer, fear mixing with obsession. Somewhere outside, the night groaned with distant sounds, low and unearthly. Morning fog clung to the ground as Emma stepped into her backyard, boots sinking into wet earth. She froze when her eyes caught the marks. Deep, elongated tracks pressed into the mud. Too wide for a man, too heavy for a deer. Her breath hitched as she knelt, fingertips hovering over the impressions, unwilling to touch them. The grass around them lay flattened, like something massive had passed by in the night. She whispered, "It was here." Her chest tightened as she followed the trail toward the tree line, the fog swallowing the prints a few feet in. Birds stayed silent, the stillness suffocating. A branch snapped somewhere unseen, sharp in the quiet. Emma spun, heart hammering, eyes scanning. Nothing moved. The fog thickened, hiding everything but the memory of what stalked near her home. Later that day, Farmer Hughes stormed into the diner, slamming his hat onto the counter. His voice shook. "Something tore my cattle apart." Emma's pulse spiked as she leaned in. "Show me." Sheriff Daniels stepped forward quickly, growling, "Coyotes. That's all it is." Hughes shook his head, face pale. "No coyote leaves a body like that." Emma's stomach turned, picturing what he'd seen. The other patrons muttered uneasily, eyes darting away. Daniels' glare silenced them all, his tone final. "Enough. No more stories." Emma's hands clenched into fists under the table. The truth was rotting in the open, and nobody dared face it. Hughes gathered his hat, muttering to himself, "It's back, just like before." His words carried like smoke, leaving Emma breathless with dread. That night, Emma tucked Lily into bed, forcing a smile despite the weight in her chest. Lily whispered, "I saw it again, outside my window." Emma froze, her stomach twisting. "What did you see?" Lily's small voice trembled. "Eyes, bright like green fire. They were watching me." Emma hugged her tightly, whispering reassurances, though her own hands shook. She checked the window, curtains fluttering with the breeze. Nothing but trees swaying outside. Yet the feeling lingered, the sense of being watched pressing in from the dark. Emma whispered, "I won't let anything hurt you." But inside, fear twisted into certainty. The creature was circling closer each night, and it already knew their names. The next morning, Emma trudged into the woods with her camera, determination outpacing fear. The claw marks on her truck replayed in her mind as she crouched near the tracks she'd seen earlier. She raised the camera, snapping shots, each click echoing through the still air. Hours passed as fog rolled between trees, swallowing light. When she returned later to review the photos, her stomach dropped. The tracks were gone, the mud smooth, as if never touched. She stumbled back, whispering, "No, I saw them." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the camera screen again. Empty ground, nothing but dirt. It felt deliberate, like the creature wanted to erase proof, to toy with her resolve. The forest around her seemed to lean in, listening. By dusk, Emma reached the unmarked cabin, her breath visible in the cooling air. The door hung open slightly, creaking with every gust of wind. Her stomach knotted as she approached, mud clinging to her boots. She pushed the door, hinges groaning loud in the silence. The interior smelled of mildew and iron. On the wooden frame, a smear of dark red streaked downward, glistening faintly. Her chest tightened, breath stuttering. She whispered, "Blood." The walls were bare, floorboards warped, yet the sense of presence clung heavy. She snapped a photo, the flash stark against decay. Something scuttled in the corner, too quick to see. Emma stumbled back, pulse racing. The open door behind her groaned wider, as if the cabin itself was breathing her in. Emma climbed the narrow steps to Ruth's porch, the wood sagging under her boots. Ruth opened the door slowly, her lined face shadowed by lamplight. Emma's voice trembled. "You know about it. Tell me." Ruth's eyes flickered, haunted. "I've seen it longer than I've lived." Emma stepped inside, the air heavy with herbs and smoke. Old books lay scattered, pages torn and brittle. Ruth whispered, "The creature hunts families bound to this land. Yours most of all." Emma's chest tightened as she clutched her father's journal. "Why us?" Ruth's gaze dropped to the floorboards. "Because your blood carries memory, and memory calls it back." Emma's breath shuddered, the weight of truth pressing her shoulders. The storm outside rattled the windows, but the silence between them was louder. Ruth leaned close, voice dropping to a rasp. "Your father tried to warn you. He thought moving you away would break the curse." Emma felt her stomach churn, remembering her father's silence. Ruth's eyes glistened with grief. But it never left. It waits for blood to return. Emma's throat closed as she whispered, "It took Daniel, didn't it?" Ruth nodded slowly. "And it will take more if you don't stop it." Emma's hands shook, clutching the journal tighter. "How do I fight something like that?" Ruth's gaze hardened. "You don't. You endure. Or you feed it another." Emma recoiled, her voice sharp. "I will never sacrifice anyone." Ruth looked away, her silence heavier than the storm pressing at the walls. Mark's truck was found abandoned near the tree line at dusk. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the door, the seat empty, keys still dangling. His jacket lay crumpled on the ground, streaked with mud. Panic surged through her chest. "Mark!" Her voice cracked, swallowed by the trees. She stumbled deeper into the woods, calling again, but only the echo answered back. Branches snapped underfoot, the silence around her suffocating. The thought struck like ice. He hadn't left her. He'd been taken. Her pulse raced, vision swimming. She whispered his name again, softer, desperate. The forest offered no reply, only the faint rustle of leaves shifting in a wind that carried something unseen. Back at her truck, Emma found a folded map tucked into the passenger's seat, her name scrawled across it in Mark's handwriting. Her chest tightened as she unfolded it, fingers shaking. The cabin was marked in red ink, circled several times, notes scribbled along the edge. "It knows her. It waits." Emma whispered, "Mark, you knew." A chill raced down her spine. He had hidden this for her, even as he vanished. Her eyes scanned the ink, smudged by rain, the paper trembling in her grip. Fear and betrayal tangled in her gut. He hadn't abandoned her. He'd led her straight to the truth. The map seemed alive in her hands, pointing her where she least wanted to go. Emma stood inside the unmarked cabin, her flashlight beam slicing through the dark. Dust swirled in the stale air. Her heart stopped when the light caught something. A backpack slumped against the wall. Her breath shook as she knelt, pulling it closer. She recognized the patch stitched on the side, frayed but familiar. It was Daniel's. She fumbled with the zipper, inside finding a watch, cracked and frozen, and a folded shirt that smelled faintly of pine. Tears burned her eyes as she whispered, "Daniel." The cabin seemed to groan around her, the air thick with his memory. She clutched the bag to her chest, grief and terror colliding, as if the walls themselves remembered what they had taken. The air inside the cabin turned colder, Emma's breath visible as her flashlight beam quivered across the walls. A sound scraped from the rafters, slow and deliberate. She raised the light, heart hammering. A shape loomed, taller than the doorframe, its limbs wrong, its head tilting unnaturally. Emma whispered, "God, no." The creature's eyes glowed faint green, reflecting her terror. Shadows stretched as it stepped forward, floorboards groaning under its weight. Her pulse raced, legs frozen as every instinct screamed to run. The journal slipped from her grip, pages scattering across the floor. The sound of claws dragged along the wood, circling her like a predator savoring fear. She forced her breath steady, though panic rattled her ribs, the realization striking. There was no escape inside these walls. Emma bolted from the cabin as the door crashed open behind her, the sound of splintering wood echoing through the trees. She stumbled across roots and wet earth, branches clawing at her arms. The forest erupted with snapping sounds as the creature gave chase, every step thunderous, closing in. Her lungs burned, air cutting sharp as she gasped. She glanced back once, eyes catching its silhouette weaving between trees, faster than human, closer than she could bear. She cried out, "No, not me." Her body shook with adrenaline, forcing her legs to push harder through the dark. Lightning flashed above, revealing twisted branches and the monstrous figure lunging through the fog. She tore forward, terror carving her path. Emma dove into a rotting shed at the forest's edge, slamming the door and bracing it with her shoulder. Her chest heaved as dust and mildew filled her lungs. The journal lay clutched against her chest like a shield. Scratches ripped across the wood outside, claws dragging slow and deliberate. She whispered, "Please, go." Her pulse thundered as the walls shuddered with each impact. A long shadow spilled through the gaps, its presence suffocating. Emma pressed her back against the boards, eyes shut, forcing her breath to stay silent. But the sound of claws continued, scraping, searching, taunting. The wood creaked under the pressure, splinters falling onto her trembling hands. Her fear swallowed her whole, leaving only desperation. The shed door splintered, claws piercing through, sharp and gnarled, inches from Emma's face. She screamed, stumbling back, dirt scattering beneath her boots. Her flashlight rolled across the floor, beam flickering wildly over the warped wood. The claws raked deeper, boards cracking, the night air rushing in with each blow. Her body shook, adrenaline burning through her veins. She grabbed a jagged plank from the ground, holding it out like a weapon, though her arms trembled. The creature growled low, vibrating the boards, primal and unearthly. Her eyes widened as a claw tip sliced her sleeve, grazing skin. She gasped, voice breaking, "Not like this." Emma's eyes darted to the scattered lantern in the corner. Its glass cracked but wick intact. With trembling hands, she struck a match, flame flaring to life. She hurled the lantern against the wall, fire igniting instantly. Flames leapt across rotted wood, smoke filling the shed. The creature screeched, recoiling as sparks sprayed across its form. Emma staggered back, covering her mouth against the smoke. The beast thrashed, clawing wildly, shadows warping against the blaze. Heat seared her skin as she burst out the back, stumbling into the night. Behind her, the shed roared with fire, the creature howling inside, not defeated but enraged. Emma collapsed to her knees in the dirt, chest heaving, the sound of its fury echoing through the forest, long after the flames rose. Emma staggered into town at sunrise, clothes scorched, mud streaked across her face. People turned to stare as she limped past, eyes hollow and unfocused. Her body ached, every step weighted with exhaustion. She collapsed against the diner wall, gasping for air. The world around her moved on in uneasy silence, locals whispering but refusing to approach. She wiped smoke from her face, muttering, "It's not gone." Her voice cracked, barely audible. The morning light felt foreign, too bright after the darkness of the night before. She pulled herself upright, staggering forward, her shadow long against the street. Fear lingered like a stain, etched into every breath. Inside the sheriff's office, Emma sat across from Daniels, her body trembling. She recounted the fire, the creature's claws, the chase through the woods. Her words spilled like broken glass, sharp and desperate. Daniels leaned back, his face unreadable. After a long pause, he said flatly, "Lanterns start fires. People panic in storms." Emma's chest tightened, fury burning through her exhaustion. "You don't believe me," she whispered. Daniels shook his head. "I believe you're tired. Go home." His words cut deeper than doubt. He was burying the truth, just as the town always had. Emma slammed her palms on the desk, voice breaking. "You're leaving us to die." Daniels didn't flinch. Silence fell like a coffin lid. Later, Ruth found Emma sitting on her porch, hands trembling around a chipped mug of coffee. Her eyes were red, voice raw. "It won't stop, will it?" Ruth lowered herself into the chair beside her, the weight of age etched in her movements. She sighed deeply. "No, child, it never stops, not for those it chooses." Emma stared into the distance, the town's quiet streets stretching out before her, their silence oppressive. She whispered, "Then why survive at all?" Ruth's gaze softened, though shadows lingered in her expression. "Because the dead don't get to fight back." Emma's jaw tightened, her chest rising with fragile resolve. She knew surviving wasn't victory. It was a curse carried forward. That night, Lily stood in the hallway, small frame silhouetted against the glow of a nightlight. "Is it gone?" she asked, voice small, fragile. Emma knelt, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Yes, she whispered, though the word tasted like ash. Lily hugged her tightly, trust shining in her eyes. Emma's arms wrapped around her, tears pressing against her lids. In that moment, she wished she could believe her own lie. But deep inside, the scrape of claws and the howl of fire echoed endlessly. She whispered again, softer, yes, as though repeating it might make it true. The house creaked, shadows stretching along the walls. The silence that followed was unbearable. Alone in her bedroom, Emma placed the old journal into a box and slid it into her closet. She stared at it, hand lingering on the lid as her chest heaved. The temptation to burn it warred against the fear of losing answers. Her reflection in the mirror across the room looked hollow, older somehow, as if the creature had carved years from her. She whispered, "It's not over." Closing the closet door, she leaned her forehead against it, her body trembling. The house felt too quiet, every shadow too deep. Outside, the night pressed against the windows, heavy and endless. Survival felt like a sentence, not a victory. Weeks later, Emma sat in her living room, the silence pressing heavy. The fire crackled low, but the warmth did not reach her. A faint sound broke through, scraping, soft at first, then sharper. Her blood froze as she turned to the front door. The noise grew louder, claws dragging across wood, slow and deliberate. She gripped the arm of her chair, breath caught in her throat. The firelight flickered wildly, shadows stretching along the walls. Her pulse thundered as she whispered, "Not again." Then, silence. The kind that suffocates. She stood, trembling, staring at the door as if it might burst open. Fear tasted metallic, sharp, and final. The next morning, shouts echoed through the street. Emma rushed outside to see neighbors gathered, panic etched on every face. A woman cried out, "A child's gone missing!" Her chest tightened as she scanned the crowd. A father clutched a torn shoe in his hands, his face pale, eyes wild. Emma's heart sank like stone. The woods loomed behind them, dark and still, as if holding its breath. Her voice broke. "Where?" The father whispered, "Near the trees." Fear swelled in Emma's chest, the truth undeniable. It had not been trapped in flames. It had only grown bolder. The whispers of the crowd merged into a heavy silence, all eyes drifting toward the forest. That night, smoke curled into the sky as flames consumed Ruth's cabin. Emma arrived too late, watching the blaze devour the wooden walls. Neighbors whispered that the fire started without warning. Ruth was gone, no trace left but ash. Emma's chest heaved, rage and grief tangled together. She whispered. They silenced her. The firelight reflected in her wet eyes, glowing like embers of defiance. The townsfolk stood at a distance, faces pale, unwilling to draw closer. Emma knew the truth. Ruth had carried the stories too long, and the curse had claimed her. As the roof collapsed with a roar, sparks lit the night sky. The creature did not need to kill her. Fear itself had finished the work. Back in her bedroom, Emma froze when she opened her closet. The box with her father's journal lay ajar. The lid was pushed back, the journal on top now open to a page she hadn't marked. Fresh ink stained the margin, words scrawled. "It never left. It waits." Her hands shook as she touched the paper. The handwriting looked like her father's, but his hand had stilled years ago. Her pulse raced, breath shallow. "No," she whispered, backing away. The mirror reflected her pale face, but for a flicker, another shadow stood behind her in the glass. She spun around. Empty room. Only the journal whispering with words she could not deny. Later that night, Emma tucked Lily into bed, forcing her voice calm. Lily smiled faintly, humming softly as she curled beneath the blanket. Emma froze, every muscle locking. The tune was low, strange, and achingly familiar. Her breath hitched as memory surged, the same guttural hum she had heard in the woods, slipping from the creature's throat. Her eyes widened, tears welling as she whispered, "Lily, where did you learn that?" The child's gaze was drowsy, innocent. "It sings to me," she murmured before drifting into sleep. Emma sat frozen, the sound still echoing, her heart breaking as realization dawned. The terror had already found its way inside.